Hi everybody, this is Bobby Lane with Bobby Lane Productions, and this is another tutorial on Ultrabeat. This time we're going to cover the multi-output. So let's get started. We have our normal tracks here, 2 software instrument tracks, 2 audio tracks. One of the reasons why I always keep an audio track handy is if I want to drop in an MP3 or a WAV file, I can just drop it right in pretty easily. And the reason why I might do that is if I'm working on a drum part to a particular song, I've got the original source I can listen to and compare. And another thing that you can do, which is pretty good, is if you have a song and it's got a clear beat to it, you can actually use the plugin to determine the beats per minute on that song. So you match up your project to the exact beats per minute. Okay, enough of that. Let's dive right in. We are going to open up Ultrabeat, and here is our insert. We're coming down in multi-output. As you look there, we've got 8 stereo and 8 mono tracks that are going to be available to us once we start loading up those auxiliary tracks. So let's get right started. I am using my secondary monitor for this screen recording, so all of my plugins and so forth will be popping up on the primary. So I'll have to drag them over. All right, so let's change this to a different drum kit. And one I've been experimenting around with a little bit here recently is this modern pop kit. And let's load it up. All right, so there we go. Give it a listen real fast, see what we've got. Let's go to the first sequence and let's see what it sounds like. Oops, I forgot to put on my headphones. Let me grab my headphones. Okay, as you can hear, it's got this little bass line going through it. Nothing too special there. I'm going to mute that out. Okay. Now, one thing I noticed, this already has panning. Okay, so you can see where some of these effects or some of these channels, these drum voices, have been panned a little bit to the right, to the left, so forth and so on. I would like to, we're going to use panning here as we go along in this tutorial. So I'm going to go ahead and zero all of them out. The easy way to do this is to option click anywhere we see panning, and it'll take it right back to 0. All right, so we're going to just zero them out. But later we will be adding panning to our drum kit. Okay, so in multi-output, it all deals with this section here, the assignment section. It's the outputs. So you've got, remember, you've got 8 mono and 8 stereo tracks available. So how do we get these into our Logic project? Very, very simple. Go ahead and click on the mixer down here and move this a little bit out of our way. Here is where Ultrabeat is sitting on this channel strip, and at the bottom you can see a plus sign, so that's where we're going to click, and we can add as many as 16, but I only need probably 7 or 8, so I'm just going to click 8 times and give me new auxiliary tracks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, cool. Now, some of these are stereo, and this very last one is mono. Well, as you noticed, we have the 8 stereo. This counts as 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 15, 16. And then the next channel available is 17, and it's a mono. And just to know, so you can know this for future reference, the easy way to make a stereo channel a mono channel or vice versa is to click this down here. You see 2 little circles represents the stereo field. Now it's 1 little circle all by itself. It's a mono. As you can see, the input was stereo, so it slashed it out there because we can't take a stereo input into a mono channel. So let's think about this. Some of these elements we definitely want to have as mono elements, mono voices. Others, like say for instance the cymbals or the toms, we definitely want to have them as stereo. So I'm going to make the first 4 auxiliary tracks here all mono. So just click that, click that, click that. And now we need to start putting the inputs in here. So what would be the most obvious one to start out with? That would be our kick drum. So we're going to make that our first mono track, which would be 17. And you see where I'm getting to this, I'm just clicking on the input, coming down to instrument 1. This will be 18. That'll be our second mono track. Click on the input, come down, 19. And our last one, instrument 1, 20. That's it. Okay, so let's double click on here and name this kick. Whoops. All right, double click here, make this snare. Another instrument I think that should stay mono is a hi-hat. Okay, and then the last one, we'll just leave it available for us. We'll decide what to do with that. Now our first, I would say, stereo instruments would be the tom-toms. All right, second one would be our cymbals. Third one would be our percussion instruments. Percussion instruments. All right. And this last one, we'll leave it available. We haven't decided, but we are going to change it to stereo. Okay. So we've got these 17, 18, 19, 20, all good with the monos. Let's go here. Let's not jump all the way up to 11, 12. Let's go to 3, 4. So we click on that. Instrument 1, 3, 4. Likewise, instrument 1, 5, 6. Likewise, instrument 1, 7, 8. And instrument 1, 9, 10. So there we go. 17, 18, 19, 20, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's all good. So now what we do is quite simple. We're going to go in here and change our kick to 17. That's our first mono track. Side stick, that's one of the snares. That's a snare, so let's make these 18. 18. What did I do wrong here? Okay, I jumped. 18. All right. Now on the clap, let's make that last one, which was 910. We're going to make that a stereo, in the stereo track, the very last one. Let's call this claps. All right. Snare, again, this would be 18. Hi-hat. Oh, excuse me, floor tom. Floor tom was 3, 4. Hi-hat, 19. Low tom, 3, 4. Hi-hat, 19. Mid tom, 3, 4. So I'm just going to go right up here and I'll speed up the recording and we'll finish up real quick here. Okay, now on this last one here, it's the bass, okay? We've got a bass instrument here. Remember, on the 25th channel, we can use this chromatically from C3 on up. So let's go ahead, since it is a bass, let's give it a mono channel, and that'll be that last mono channel we were looking at, number 20, and we'll go ahead and rename that mono, we'll rename it bass. All right. So now, as you see, I've got nothing left in the main. So over here, this would be, let's go ahead and rename that main. And remember, main represents a stereo track, and it is the way it's loaded. Everything's loaded into it. But now that at this point, we should see nothing coming through the main. So let's play it and see what we get here. I'm going to go ahead and mute this little bass just because it's annoying me. All right, sounds pretty good. Now let's start working on some of the panning. If you look at a drummer from the point of view of an audience member and you're looking on stage, you see a right-handed drummer. To the right of your vision will be his hi-hat and his snare. So let's take the hi-hat and just put it a little bit off to the right. All right. Excuse me. Let's see. Here we go. Oh, wait a minute. Hi-hat is, think about it, hi-hat is no longer a stereo channel in Ultrabeat, but it is still available to pan over here. So I can pan it a little bit to the right there. Okay, good. Now our toms are still going 3/4, so we know they're going to be stereo. All right, so starting with the floor tom, if you're looking at a drummer from the point of view of the audience, his floor tom would be towards your left. So let's crank it over here to the left. His low tom is going to be pretty far over to the left. His mid tom is going to be just a little bit to the left, and his mid tom a little bit to the left, and then his high tom a little bit to the right. All right, any more toms? That's it. All right, now various things in the percussion. Let's say, let's bring a tambourine off to the left. Let's take a shaker off to the right. Let's take this hand drum, leave it there. This ring is, let's put it over to the hard right. This ocean drum, hard left, and so forth. Let's see this thing here. Hey, you know what? I don't have any purpose for that. And I only have one crash cymbal. So why don't we make another crash cymbal? And let's do this. Let's make this crash cymbal hard left. And let's make this crash cymbal hard right. Well, first of all, we got to get up here. We got to make it into a cymbal. So looking at this, this is where the sample is loaded for that particular sound. Okay. So if you see the name there, I know it's pretty tiny, but if you click on that, you can load another sample. So you click load sample, and here we go. Here's the directory for Ultrabeat samples. Here's my crash cymbals. Here's one I like. It's called Hard Crash. Let's play it. It's pretty darn loud. That's okay. We'll fix it. Okay, now play this. Say, hey, wait a minute. That doesn't sound like that cymbal at all. It still sounds like whatever that was. So what we need to do is right-click, go down to Initialize, and Initialize Sample. And what that did, it was just wiped out any of the extras that was going on in the oscillators, the filters, and whatever. Okay, so now if we play it, it is definitely our sample, but it's just a little tiny shot. Well, that's because the envelope is way down on the amplitude. The amplitude envelope is very, very short. So let's stretch it out as far as we can go. Now play it. You hear the whole sample with one shot. Now if you want to lower the volume, because you know this other crash is much lighter, let's bring it up a little bit. It's way louder. Let's go ahead and just drop the volume right here. Right about there. And again, we want to make this guy hard right. He's on the right, he's on the left. All right, good. Now, to hear how some of these things sound, we have to have them join into the sequence. We don't have any toms in the sequence. We don't have any crash cymbals in the sequence. So let's get them in there and let's see what we've got. Let's go to the full view. I'm going to make this my, oh, and by the way, just double click on that, change it to hard crash. There we go. Okay. So here's my first hit on the hard crash, bam, there. And then let's come down here to my, where's my other crash? There it is, right there. And let's go ahead and just clear all these little bass notes. Let's clear them out of there. Bam. Okay. So now we're hearing a pretty good stereo field with those two crashes. That one's a little too loud. Alright, so that's pretty nice. They're both a little too loud, so I can easily just drop down this fader in my mixer without having to touch them. That's a lot better. Okay, now let's see if we can get something going with these toms. We don't have any toms in this sequence. So let's go ahead and put a 4 or an 8 beats on the toms there. So we'll start out with, let's see, let's try this right here. A couple on the floor, a couple on the low, a couple on the mid, a couple on the high, right about here, here, and let's leave it at that and see what it sounds like. That's pretty cool. So now we're hearing a stereo field. If you really need to make it drastic, you can just push them a little farther to each side. All right, now what about a shaker? Let's put a shaker in here, and we're going to go, let's say, every downbeat. All right, and then let's take a tambourine, and let's go every upbeat. See what that sounds like. And what we're doing, we're trying to get more of that feel of a stereo field, so not too bad. Let's go ahead and clear those out. All right, now one of the big advantages of having all these multi-output tracks is being able to do different things to each grouping. So here in my kick, let's say the first thing I want to do is add a high-pass filter. So I go into single band, high-pass filter, mono. Let's drag it over from my primary. Let's change our crossover point to right about 40. It's usually a good place to let the high pass go through. Another thing I might want is some compression, a little bit of compressor on there with some limiting. So we'll take the limiter down to like 1 dB, be hard knee, high ratio. Leave this where it is, see what that sounds like. Get this back. All right, cool. Doesn't sound too bad. If you want to turn these off real quick, all you have to do is option click, and you can hear it did kind of bring out something in the bass that I like. All right. Now, if I want to, let's do something to the snare. To me, it sounds like it needs to be fattened up a little bit, so I'm going to just double click on this EQ. It's called the channel EQ. And I like it. It's pretty handy. I can go ahead and do a similar cut like I did on the drum. That's just sort of a high pass filter right there. And it needs to be fattened up somewhere around here. Turn it off and see what it sounds like. Hit bypass here if you like. It definitely fattens it up a little bit. There's a little trick I like to do sometimes. You just crank that up a little bit. Gives you a little bit of that. And if I want to take this compressor and take an exact copy of all the settings, all I have to do is do Command, Option, click, and drag. I just got the exact same settings, the same compressor. Put that on there now. Let's see what it sounds like. Nice. Okay, one of the things that you like to hear on a snare is reverb. So I could insert reverb right here, and it would affect just that channel strip. But a better way to work is to use the bus sends. These are bus sends here, all along here. So how do you get it going? You just click on that tab, go to bus 1, Logic automatically creates you a bus. So I'm going to double click down here, retype the name to reverb, and insert a nice reverb. I like this one here. And we're going to make it into a stereo. We're going to make this into a stereo auxiliary track. Now the reason why it started out as a mono auxiliary track was the send was coming from a mono track, so it automatically makes it mono that way. Now if I want to get some reverb in the snare, if I want to get the snare into some reverb, I just dial it up a little bit. And let's go ahead and play here. Now we hear some nice reverb going along with that snare. A real lot of it. A little bit. There you go. Okay, what else? Let's listen to this hi-hat. It's kind of low. We could crank it up here if we want to. Another way to crank it up is to use a plug-in. Utility, gain, and we'll keep it mono. Drag that over. And let's just add, double click, 1.0. There we go. That just gave it a little bit, maybe give it a little bit more than that. Something like that. Bring this back down to 0. And you know what? That could use a little bit of reverb too. There we go. Listen to these toms. I think they would benefit the use of this same compressor, so I'm going to bring it over. Just drop it right there. That helps them a little bit. Let's go ahead and throw in that channel EQ right here. And we will do the same kind of drop. And we'll crank it up a little bit there. And I'd like to hear something right around here, maybe a little lower. Yeah. Everything's getting a little bit loud right now. So let's go ahead and turn that off for a second. The whole mix of the drums is getting a little on the loud side. So I'm going to show you a little trick here. I'm going to grab all of these. Those are all of my auxiliaries for this is my original channel strip, and these are all my auxiliaries for the drums. I'm going to change the stereo output to a bus. And I'm going to click there, number 2. There's my second one. Double click here, and we'll call it drums. Okay. Now anything I needed to insert into the entire drum mix, I could do it right here. This would give any EQ to the entire drum mix, any compression, limiting, you name it, like that would work. But also it gives me a master fader, a subgroup for the drums. So let's turn it back on. And so if I think I've got a big mix going on and I want to hear a little bit less drums, I can do it right here. I think those cymbals are still sticking out a little bit too much. There we go. Speaking of the cymbals, let's add some reverb to them. And the toms, of course, they can use some reverb as well. Let's listen to our reverb bus. All right. So there you have it. I think that's a pretty good overview of the multi-output. Turn this off for a second. You've got the instantiation of it. Originally, you just go here and you've got that multi-output option, so you click on that. Your first channel strip that's got Ultrabeat on it, you just hit the plus sign. As you see now, there is also a subtract sign, so if I needed to subtract some of those auxiliary tracks, I could. So you just hit the plus sign, and if you think, well, I need 6, and then as you go along you realize, hey, I need 7 or 8, just hit the plus sign a couple more times and you're good to go. Make sure you assign you determine, first of all, which tracks you want to use as mono and which tracks you want to use as stereo. Then you make sure you assign the input to the correct one. You've got your assignments over here. And that's about it. Adding the plugins as you go along to each one that you think is appropriate. It's all a matter of taste. There are no really hard-pressed rules on this stuff. For instance, one of the things I like to do is I use this high-pass filter a lot of times, or I'll do the similar thing with this channel EQ, and I'll do that for the entire drum set. Well, if I'm going to do it for the entire drum set, might as well do it right here. So go ahead, get your EQ, single band, high pass filter, drag it over here from my primary, and do that 40 hertz and above high pass filter. Just double click and type in 40. There you go. So anyhow, I think that's going to be it for this particular tutorial. Our next tutorial will be loading samples and creating your own kit. So for now, this is Bobby Lane Productions saying goodbye, and hope you enjoy your Ultrabeat.